I wanted to mention yesterday that yesterday was the yahrzeit of Mrs. Zolti, the first yahrzeit of Mrs. Zolti, and today it's the yahrzeit of Rav Moshe Zolti, our beloved Rav Moshe Zolti, who was basically like the father of our Kehillah, both the Neshama Shirav and Aliyah.
Amen.
Today,
Amen.
today is also the yahrzeit of two of four famous brothers-in-law. There was a very wealthy Yid who lived in Kovna, and his name was Mr. Frank, Shraga Feivel Frank, and he was a very wealthy guy. And he died from pneumonia at the young age of 43. This was in the second half of the 19th century, I think about in 1866, 1870. And he left instructions to his wife that the four daughters that I left over, he left over four daughters. I want you to marry them off to boys who at least have the potential to be Gedolah Yisrael. And the Almana, his wife, took this mission very, very seriously. And he had four very famous sons-in-law. And two of those sons-in-law share the same yahrzeit. One of them was Rabbi Isser Zalman, who was the Rashiva, I believe, in Slutsk, and he is the father-in-law of Rabbi Aaron Kotler, and he was the brother-in-law of, I forgot who, but also one of the great Gedolim, Rabbi Shach, or he was the brother of a very chashuv guy, and the other brother-in-law was Rabbi Moshe Motka Epstein, who ended up being the Rashiva of Hebron. So both those brothers-in-law, it's their yahrzeit today. It's Chusim Yagan Aleim. Okay, let's see the Gemara. So yesterday we learned what happens if somebody has a legitimate star and he loses it. How do you deal with it? So we should really go back a little bit to Kuf Samach Ches Amud Beis, which is 6 lines from the bottom. Tanu Rabban, Hareisha Ba v'Amar. Someone comes to Bezdin and tells us, Avad Shtar Chayvi. Unfortunately, I lost my Shtar Chayv. Alpha Pisha Amru Edim. Even if Edim can testify on his behalf. Anu Kasavnu, we wrote this star. Vichasamnu, and we signed this star. Unutnanu Loy, and we gave him the star, but we didn't see that he lost it. We cannot testify that he lost it, but we can testify that the star was a legitimate star. Nevertheless, Ein Koisvin Loy as a star. You cannot rewrite the star. When do we have this restriction? Bishtar Helva. And the peril is obvious. He might collect if he's lying. If he's lying and he really has the star, by having 2 stars, he'll be able to collect the same loan twice. And even if he's not lying, and he actually did lose it, maybe he'll collect with the substitute star, then he'll find the star and he'll collect again. What if someone bought a property and he lost the star that testifies to the fact that he purchased the property? So there you'll write it, because all he needs it for is to prove that he bought this property. But we don't want him to be able to collect from it. So in other words, if the property that he has gets taken away for whatever reason, we don't want him to be able to go back to the moicher and collect again, because there, if there's 2 stars, it could create problems. But if the only purpose of the star is to be used as a raya, so that if the moicher claims that he never sold him the property, that he can defend himself, that's the only reason why we will write this star. Okay. Now let's see the Gemara in Amud Aleph. Kuf Samach Tes Amud Aleph. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says there's a peril even in that, even in giving somebody a second star that he bought a property. And Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says, Av shtore mekach umemkar ein koisen. You can't even give somebody a star that indicates that he bought this property fair and square. What could the peril possibly be? So as we learned yesterday, and the Rashbam tells us over here, the Svirle, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel holds, ois niknas b'mesira, which means if you give me a star, and that star is makna to me your property, if I want to give it back to you, if I want to give the property back to you, all I have to do is hand you off that star, and the property's yours. Even though we didn't write a new star mechira, just giving back that star is consider transferring back the property. So over here, our concern is maybe you didn't want that purchase anymore, and maybe the purchaser gave the star back to the moicher, and now he changed his mind, and now he's claiming that he lost the star so that they can produce another star for him. So therefore, since Reb Shimon ben Gamliel holds that Oisios Niknas b'Mesira, after the moicher was makna the field to this person with a star, maybe the loikeach returned the star to the moicher, and thereby the chazer loy mekhay, and actually reversed the sale. And if he reversed the sale, it's not his anymore. Now, if he changes his mind, and therefore he asks for another copy of the bill of sale, that could lead him to say, I didn't give it back. And that would be unlawful. Another place where the shaila of Oishis Niggas P'Masir is relevant is Reuven borrows $100,000 from Shimon, and they write a star that Reuven owes Shimon $100,000. If Shimon gives that star over to Levi, has he successfully transferred the shibud? Has he successfully transferred the loan? If you hold Oishis Niggas P'Masir, it does work, because giving over the star, which represents whatever it is that we're talking about, whether it's the shibud of a milva, whether it's the ownership of a piece of land, that will actually transfer over all the rights contained within that star. And therefore, Reb Shimon Gamliel holds that chazer matanose. So we'll see that just in a minute. So Reb Shimon Gamliel Omer av shtor meger ein kaisvin. V'chein hoyer Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Omer hanoisin matana lechaverei v'hichsel loyes hashtar. The halach is chazer matanose. As the Rashbam says, chazer matanose kidim afarish lakamei taima. We will soon see the reason. The Chachamim oimrim matanose kayemes. Zok the Chachamim matanose kayemes, meaning ella in kain chazer u'machra oy nosna loy b'kinyan gomer oy b'shtar chodosh kidim lakeich u'moicher. Just returning the original star will do nothing. If you make a new kinyan, however you buy karka, you make a new kinyan b'keshev b'shtar b'chazaka, so that could reverse the sale, because you're not really reversing the sale, you're just reselling it back to the moicher. So therefore, the Rabbanan aren't worried about it, that you lost the star, that you didn't lose the star, you gave it back. Because according to the Rabbanan, even if you gave it back, it wouldn't make a difference. It's still yours. So there's no peril in rewriting the shtaraya. But according to Reb Shimon Gamliel, where it's possible that you actually return the star, that's where there's a peril. Now, if you see, there's a long tosfos here, because once we establish that you could give back a star, mechira, there are potential perils that tosfos discusses how you mitigate. So I'm looking at the big tosfos that goes from the bottom of Kuf Samach Tes to the top of Kuf Samach Tes, and in the intermediate lines, about 5-6 lines up, the tosfos asks a kasha. Tema Lari Shekol Moicher Soda. Based on this, anyone who ever sells a field, Yochol Lahazik Lilakeach, can cause a lot of damage to the Lakeach. The Kivan Shekoisvin Star Lemoicher. We know that if I want to sell a property, I could pre-write the star, even though I haven't yet made a deal with the Lakeach. I'm hoping to meet with this Lakeach and to be able to sell him this property, so I want to have a star prepared. We learned just a couple of days ago that you're allowed to do that. So the Zimnin, the cause of Shnei stars, let's say Reuven, who wanted to sell his property to Shimon, wrote 2 stars to have a spare. One of the stars, when he actually completes the sale, he will give over to Lakeach, but he'll withhold the second star that he wrote. And after 3 years, where he can assume the Lakeach already gave up the star, because you only hold it for 3 years, because at that point he has a chazaka, at that point it would be assumed that Lakeach would no longer have the star. Then the Moicher can come back, he could claim, according to Reb Shimon Gamliel, that the Lakeach gave the star back to me and he returned the property to me. And the Lakeach lo yichol loimer loi mitchila kasafta. Shekasafta oz harbe shtaris. And he won't be able to say that that star that you have is one of the stars that you never gave me that you pre-wrote. Me'achar shehu ein lo star. If I have a star as well, if Lekech has a star, the Moichel builds a star, Lekech is shkoich. That's the second star you didn't give me. But if Lekech has no star at all, he's going to have a problem. How will he be able to prove that he didn't return the star? So this is what Tosfos struggles with. So one of the simple answers Tosfos offers is the Shleimar Dikla Meimar Shekivin Shehichzik Shalosh Shonim Bekarka. Once you have a chazaka, that's a very powerful thing. We look at it as if he's still actually holding on to the star. The 3 years of a chazaka gives the lakeach the strength to make the same claim that he would make if he in fact was holding on to the star. Ki yoymar, he'll have a very good excuse why he doesn't have his star. Masha ainli stari, loy bishvil shechzarti lach, not like you claim, Mr. Moicher, that I returned it to you. Ela shaloi nisharti l'shamroi lacha shalashon. So this is part of the discussion the Tosfos has. He goes through the different perils and how they could be mitigated. Okay, let's see the Gemara weiter. Amar Mar. Now we're going to drill down a little bit to understand how you would write this star to replace a star mechira without a chrayas. Amar chutz me'achrayas shaboy. My timer. Why is it that we can't allow the lokeach to use the star to collect in the event that a balchoiva of the moicher seized the property from him? Amar Rab Safra lepisha ein koisvin shnei shtoris al sadach. You never write 2 stars on one property. Remember, that's what Abaya invoked when the people who were being attacked by the Arabs and they were taking away their deeds, they asked for a spare star. And Abaya said, I can't. Why can't we do that? So let's assign names. Let's say that Reuben sold Shimon a field for $100,000. Reuben owed $100,000 to Levi. So again, Reuben is the seller and the loiva. Shimon is the innocent purchaser, and Levi is the one who is owed money by Reuben. So Dilma Azul Ba'choiv Tarf Leilahai. Levi will come and seize the property from Shimon because Reuben won't have money to pay off his loan, and Reuben won't have any free properties. So Levi has a right to go to a property that Reuben sold to Shimon. So Levi will take the property away from Shimon. Now, Shimon, who bought a property, if he had a chrayas, now he also has recourse. What he will do is he will go to somebody who purchased a property from Reuben after he did. So he has rights. The Ozal Hai Umapik Chad, he'll pull out one of his 2 stars. V'torf l'kuchos. He'll go to the next lekech. Let's say it was Yehuda. And he'll tell Yehuda, listen, I have a star that I purchased this property, and the property was seized from me by Levi because our wonderful vendor Reuven loaded money. So I'm taking your property away. Now the first question that Duvi would ask me is, why did I give the mal for my property if there's a guy who bought property from Reuven after I did? Why didn't he tell the Malva? What did he come to me for? Go to that guy. I left the property by Reuven when I bought. Go after the next property that was left by Reuven that he subsequently sold to Yehuda. Right? That's what we would ask. The answer to that, the Rishonim struggle with, but they say for some reason the Malva maybe had an apoitiki, maybe had a specific lien on this property. There was some reason why the Malva had a right to target the property that Shimon bought from him, even though Reuven had other properties in his portfolio that he might have sold at a later time to Yehuda. So what happens is now Shimon will go after Yehuda, and he will seize a property from Yehuda by surrendering the star that indicates that he purchased his property from Reuven first. Then what he'll do is, so now he has another property, the property that Yehuda bought, but there's still the property that the Malva, the Levi, took away from him. He'll make a kinunya, he'll make a scam with the Bachoiv. And he'll tell Levi, let me tell you what. Shoifli, don't take the property away from me. Let me sit with it. Nobody has to know. And wait till things die down. The Ekamba, I'll continue in that property. I have a second star that says that I bought it. The Hadar Taturf, and come back at a later date when nobody will remember that you've already taken it away from me. Pull up the Shtar Choiv and take the property away. And then with my second star, I'll go take away a property that Reuven sold to Yisachar. And now we'll get an extra field out of it, and we'll split the revach. The Hadar also Torah Lekucha Shachrin. So because of that, we cannot possibly allow this second star that we're given to be used for anything other than to prove ownership, but never to be able to go back after the moicher and take properties away from the kukosh or even from the moicher, because that would be too dangerous. Gewaltig. Let's just have a quick peek at the Rashbam. The Omer Lei Shoif Li the Eikim Ba'ara. He'll tell the Balchoy will tell the Levi, do me a favor. He'll tell Levi, not Levi, the Malva. He'll tell Levi, do me a favor. Yes, this property is yours fair and square because Reuven knows your money, but leave it by me a little bit till people forget so we can do this again. Kloimar, al ta'ar alai ataklum. Don't say anything now. Pir shoif is beshuvi. Let it stay calm without contesting it. Kidigasinon v'hu she'achlum b'aleim shalosh shonim ubeshufi. Right? How do you have a chazaka if you sit and eat pears of a property for 3 years beshufi without error, without anybody contesting it? Kach Amr Loi. So that's what the purchaser Shimon told the Malva Levi. Shoifli, leave me alone a little bit. The Ekum Ba'ara Arba Ochomesh Shonim Atet Siyashvin Adavar, till everyone forgets about it. And once again, everyone will think that this is my property fair and square. They won't remember that you tried to seize it once. The Hadar Sa'ub Uta'aralai Simnechriti. And now come again with your star milva and say it was never paid up and seize this property away from me. And then 4 or 5 years later, when everybody forgets, the Malva, meaning Levi, will come once again and seize the same property from Shimon all over again. And now Shimon, v'hadar eitel lakoina, v'hadar eitel lakoina, sh'amar avet shtarai, v'kos v'loi acher. And basically this fellow, Shimon, who claimed that he lost a star a long time ago, and now he had a second star, he'll go, umabekle lahu star kama, or the second star, the second star that he has in his possession, he can use again to take away a property from another unsuspecting buyer of Reuven, like Yisachar. The Kachvule al Sadazu, Basel, the Tarif Lilkut. So that is the problem. Frank the Gemara, your whole concern is not a concern at all. It could never possibly happen. You know why? Because in order for a Malva to be able to collect from the Kuchais, the first thing he has to do is surrender his star to Bez. So when he tries coming back in 5 years to do this all over again, he won't have a star. If he doesn't have a star that he lent money to Reuven, he's coming to collect from this property because he has a star that he lent Reuven money, and Reuven never paid. So if he has to surrender the star before Bezdin will seize a property away from Shimon, if Levi has to surrender his star, halva, before he can take the property from Shimon, how could he possibly do this again? So frankly, the milva b'may hadar tarifli. How is he going to come make another assault on the property? He doesn't have a star. And if you're going to say yes, it could happen if for some reason they didn't tear up the star milva and they released the property that Shimon bought from Reuven to the Malva Levi, even though they didn't rip up the star. Zoktamar, it's impossible that could occur, because now we're going to learn the long bureaucratic process in foreclosure. If you think to get a foreclosure You probably know how foreclosure works. If you think getting a foreclosure is difficult in secular law, let's go through the red tape of what it takes to do a foreclosure. The Amr Ab Nachman called tirfa the lexibe karane l'shtora, any star tirfa that doesn't say in it we tore up the star milva karane l'shtar de milva lav tirfa. It's not a valid star that will let you take it away from the lukuchos. And we'll see exactly what this tirfa is. And then the drachta like sibbe karani tirfa, and the drachta is the next level star. And again, we'll see the Rashbam what all these steps are. But the drachta is the next level star. If it doesn't say in it that the tirfa was destroyed, lava drachta. V'chal shuma, and the next level is shuma. The like sibbe karani drachta lav shumahi. So there's so many checks and balances along the way of stories that have to say that the previous star was destroyed. How is it possible that a malva can come and make a second attempt on the same property? He would have already had to have surrendered his star. Let's see the Rashbam now, the whole process. It's interesting how he shines light on everything. The Omer Rab Nachman, this is in the Rashbam, 3 lines up in the skinny lines. Kachu aseder. This is the process of doing a foreclosure. Malva bola bezdin v'tzoyik al haloy sheyifra loy chayvay. The Malva comes to Bezdin and tells the Bezdin, I want the loiva to pay up. So Bezdin summons the loiva, like we said, the Eloi Yosy, and if the loiva does not come to Bezdin to respond to the Malva's claim, Misham Tinanle, we will actually put the loiva in here. Now he is not in compliance and he's not listening, so we have to take matters into our own hands. So the first step is the koisvin star tirfa malva. We write a star tirfa for the malva after we destroy his star milva. And what does the star tirfa say, and what does it allow him to do? That gives him the right to start snooping around to identify assets that the loiva might have. In secular court, there's such a system where they make you come and attest under oath all of the assets that you may own that could be possibly used to collect from. But here the Malva was given a star that allows him to snoop around. Does he need a star to snoop around? No. But the next thing is what he needs the star for. If they can find any property that either he still controls the loiva or that the loiva sold after the loan occurred, this property may not be in the same city of the Bezdin that he originally summoned the loiva to. It could be in a different city. So we can go to the Bezdin of that city and say, we know that my loiva owns this property. And I have a star from my Bezdin that says I have a right to seize any of his properties. So the Yimtru Loi Karkaosh of the Malva. Now the Malva gets control of the property, but it's not his that he can move in yet. That's just the first step. He's identified the property, and now we could set this property up on the route of foreclosure. Then the Bezdin of the city in which this property exists, the Kosvolo Shtar Drachta, they're going to write him a Shtar Drachta after they destroy his Shtar Tirfa. And what will it say in this Drachta? She shalit v'doyrech al nechosov shozeh ligvois chayvemehen. They're going to give him sort of rights of power of attorney over this property. So in the land registry, it will say that no longer is the loiva in control of this property. This property is now in control of the power of attorney, the malva who's coming to collect, Kidamafarish Bagosh Basra. Ushtara Tirfa, Yikaru, Avada the Bezin who issues that drachta, will destroy the Shtar Tirfa, Penyachsor V'Yitra for Bezin Acher. Because otherwise he can go to a different city where there's another property and seize that as well. Then, now that he has this drachta, there's a certain system of how a property has to be advertised to maximize the value that we can get out of this property to pay down the loan as much as possible. Now, the loan might be for $500,000. The property might only be worth $300,000. The question is, if I seize this property, how much of the loan is discharged? Depending on the assessed value of the property that you do after you get the drachta, that's how much the property acquisition will reduce the outstanding amount of loan. Well, he still has the drachta. He still has the drachta. That says it's his.
That says this new property says
Yeah.
$200,000 value that he's still missing.
If he gave up his avah.
Yeah.
So what they would have to do is they would have to write a star for the difference. And we're going to see how that's dealt with. The yichtavu loy bezdin star shumas hanachosim ladas become a kiblay. Here the bezdin will write a star of what the value of. So now you get up the drachta and they tell him, okay, this field became the malvez, but at this cost. And the rest he still can collect, is still outstanding. Umishum the shuma hadra lo'ilam. The halach is whenever you take assets away from a loiva or away from lekuchais because of a chayv that was owed, at any time in the future they have a right to pay you off and get it back. At any time in the future, if the loiva comes up with the money, he can get his nechasim back. When they give him the star hashuma, yikru hadrachta. Again, because ben yachshav v'yitref ba pam shniach shaloikidin, he might take away this property again shaloikidin if it was sold to somebody else. So I'll call upon him. This seems to be airtight. How would it be possible that the malva would be able to come and use the same star to collect again? He would have had to have surrendered the star in order to get the ball rolling with the very first star tirfa. Zok to Gemara, you know why we can't write two star? You know why we cannot write a chrayas into a star with mekach hamemkar? It's for a different reason. Zok to Gemara latricha deka'asi mikoyach havasei. We're not talking about Shimon losing the property to Levi, who was owed money by Reuven. We're talking about Shimon losing this property to Levi, who claims that this property never belonged to Reuven in the first place. It belonged to Levi and Levi's family, going back generations. And Reuven never bought the property fair and square. So Levi comes to Shimon and said, Reuven didn't sell you a property. Reuven sold you the Brooklyn Bridge, because what he sold you was never his. That such a claim, there's no star to give up. He just has a raya from his legacy, from his family legacy, that this property was his. That can come again and again. Let's have a look at the Rashbam. Loy tzricha, da'asi mekoich avosei. Lekach ein koisrin shnei stories. That's why you cannot write two stories. The chayshinon demalav mikoich halva yava v'yitroif. Levi's not taking this property from Shimon because he claims Reuven owed him money. Reuven says it's his property and he's selling it to you. Nonsense. It all belonged to my grandparents and Reuven stole it. The Hevi Adam and Levi was successful in bringing Adam kizu stay avoisav. And Reuven, who sold it to you, Shimon, Reuven stole it from my grandparents, from my parents. So they're going to take the property away from Shimon and they're going to give it to Levi. Bezdin will write a star to Shimon that this property that he bought from Reuven was taken away from him. Which now gives Shimon the right to seize any property that Reuven may have sold to somebody else, like Yehuda or Yosy. So now Shimon could go make a deal with Levi, a trick, a scam. Levi, who seized the property from Shimon, Shimon can now gang up together with that Levi. The Amr Lei, and he'll tell Levi, Shoifli, Vaseke, do me a favor. Yes, it's your property, but you know what? Leave it by me for a little while, and we'll do this again. And he did the whole thing all over again. And here there was no star to surrender. The then Shimon can pull out a second star that he got when he claimed he lost the first star. Then he can go out to Yisachar or Zevulun, any later person that bought from Reuben property after Shimon did. We never write 2 stars for one field with achrayis, because that will lead to it could lead to a tremendous scam. Okay, gewaltig. Zog to Gemara weiter. Zog to Gemara weiter. Let's go back to what we were concerned about. What were you worried about? That the whole point was we were worried that the person who bought property for Shimon is the main character in our play. Shimon will tell the Malva, let me stay on this property and come back in 3 or 4 years, right? Why did he have to say come back in 3 or 4 years in order to make a scam? He can make a scam right away. And we'll wait 3, 4 years and we'll do this again. I could collect twice now. Typically, why aren't we more concerned about a problem occurring immediately? The Kivin the Nakat, Trey Stare, since I have 2 stars that I purchased this property from Ruvain, Tarif, Father Tarif. I had my property seized by the Malva, and now I'll go to Yehuda and I'll say, I need your property. And then I'll go to Yisachar and say, I need your property. Why would I wait 4 or 5 years? I can scam him immediately. I don't even need the Malva to help me. Zok to Gemara, I couldn't get away with that. Because in Kain, you know, when people hear that this Shimon is going to Din Torah every Monday and Thursday, the different Baaladin we're going to get together says, did he just take you? He took me to court too. Hey, how can he collect from both of us? So these things have to be done in a discreet fashion. If he starts making a tumult and running from Bezdin to Bezdin, it's going to blow his cover. Correct the Gemara, but let's do something else. Why don't we write a proper star to Shimon that you bought this property fair and square with achrayis? We know he bought it, but the lichtav tavra lemoicher, but also write a receipt to Ruvain that will say kol shtori the yafkin al arada, any star that will now be pulled on this subject property, psulin, are automatically puzzled. Lavar min the yepuk bismanada. Let's say we're going to date this secondary star that we're writing January 1st, 2024. We'll give a receipt to Ruvain that says any person who claims to own this property and has a star dated on any other day than January 1st, 2024, those stars are invalid. So now he's protected because he won't be able to collect again with the other star because the other star will have the wrong date. Zok to Gemara, Amrua Rabbanan Kamedra Papa, V'Amrula Kamedra Vashi. Since we don't do that, and that would be a simple way to mitigate this entire situation, Zoy Semeres ain't Kaisvin Shoiver. You see from here that we hold that you don't ever write a Shoiver. Right, the discussion of whether or not you write a Shoiver is a much deeper discussion. We're going to learn in the Mishnah soon. But the discussion of whether or not you write a shoiver is very simple. I borrow money from Mati. I buy $100,000 from him, and I pay him back $50,000. So what is the right way to deal with this? Do you give me back the star, and or do you keep the star and you just write me a receipt that I paid you back some, or do you give me back the star? So the halacha is if we held that we write a shoiver, so what it does is it means that now it's incumbent on me to hold on to the shoiver. That puts the onus, it puts a burden on the loiva. But if we say that if we take away your star and you don't write a receipt, now that puts a burden on the malva to hold on to his star. So that is the question: who do we burden? The whole discussion of kois and shoiver or not is who do we burden to have to hold on to his documents? My case isn't good. My case isn't good. Let's say if I'm paying in full. If I'm paying in full, could you ask me to pay in full if you don't give me the star back? Right? What if you claim you lost the star, but I'll give you a receipt? Right? No, half was a terrible example. I'm talking about when I paid whole, where I paid the whole thing, and I say I'll give you the whole thing. I have the money. Give me my star. And the mom said I lost the star, but I'll write you a receipt. Can I say no? I'm not going to accept a receipt. If you don't give me the star, I'm not paying at all. Or could you say, no, you'll pay me anyway, and I'll write your receipt? That shaila really is upon who is the burden of storing and watching that document. So you have arrived from me that in Kais and Shoiver, because being that this Shoiver would have solved all our problems, yet it's not an option offered, it must be that we don't write receipts. Zok to Gemara, you don't have a right. Well, that is one. That is definitely one that it's talking in the Machlokes. Because here I'm doing you a favor. What do I need to get into this for? Right? I don't want. Shall I tell those? But they love him. If you're going to put all the burden on me, I'm not going to be lending money out. So that's one of the start them into discussion. So Zok to Gemara Viter. So he told him back. Let's see who's talking to who. I like getting my names properly. Who is talking? Reb Safra. There was a Reb Safra. I'm not sure who was talking to Reb Safra. Nachman. Yeah. Who was talking to? No, it's Reb Acham Midifti Ravina. So we're talking about Reb Acham Midifti and Ravina. So maybe Ravina told back to Reb Acham Midifti. No, Reb Ashi. Reb Ashi. So where are they? They're a little later. So where are they in the Gemara? Oh, here, a papa, right? All the way at the bottom. Amru Rabban Kamedi Rav Papa, Ramala Kamedi Rav Ashi. Zoy Shemeres. So Rav Ashi said back, no, you don't have a riot from here. Ain't Koshon Shaver. Maybe Ba'alma Koshon Shaver. Maybe in the normal case with a Malva and a Loiva, you write a Shaver. But Hacha, it's only in this case with a fellow who lost the star. Here we won't write a Shaver. You know what? Time here there's a peril. So normally Avadi you would write a Shaver and you would force the Loiva to have to hold on to the Shaver. But over here there's another problem. Here we won't write a Shaver. You know why? The Dilma Azul Bal Chayv, the Tarif Minei Dilakeh. So let's say Reuven has his Shaver. Okay? Reuven has a Shaver that there's only one star that Shimon has that's valid. But it's by Reuven. What are we going to do if Shimon had his property seized by Levi? Now Shimon, it doesn't go back to Reuven. Shimon will go back to another purchaser of Reuven. He'll go back to Yehuda, and he'll use his predated star to be Torif from Yehuda. Yehuda doesn't have a shaver. He doesn't know anything about it. So V'Torif Minei Lekech, he'll go away, he'll go to Yehuda, who doesn't even know that Reuven has the shaver. The Azal Iu V'Torif Lekuchais, and so the Bachai will come, Levi will come and take it away from Shimon. Shimon will go and take it away from Yehuda. And Yehuda will never know that this star is not valid because he doesn't have the shofar that says that only the properly dated star is the right star. So Yehuda is going to be in trouble. That's why we can't give a shofar. Why would Yehuda be in trouble? Once Yehuda loses his property to Shimon, what's the first thing he's going to do? He's going to go right back to Reuben and say, I want my money back. So Soif, Lukuchos, Lav Amri, the Ira Hadri, of course he'll go back, because he'll go back to Reuben. Reuben will pull the Shoiver. It will reverse the improperly acquired property, and then he'll get it back. Zok to Gemara, he will get it back. But at the Hachi V'Hachi, Shamit V'Achal Peri. The property that was seized might have been a property that was fully laden with fresh Paris. And it between the time where this poor Lokeach cops to go back to Reuben, by that time it might all be harvested. So he's still allowed to claim that back, but it's much more difficult to get a Ganev to pay you back something that he already spent. So in order to protect the future Lukuchos, that's why in this particular case, we will not rely on the Shofer. Inami, or another thing that could happen is, L'Lakeach Shaloi B'Achrayis. What if this last guy who we took his property away, Yehuda, what if he bought it without Achrayis? Meaning he bought it without recourse. He's not even going to chap to go back to Reuven. And he's going to end up losing his property improperly. Frek Gemara, if that's the case, Yachi Shtare Halva Nami. So every star halva, we should also not be able to write a shover. There'll be a problem there as well. Zok to Gemara. So why wouldn't you have the same problem with a star halva? He could collect, and then the next guy might not have a price, and he'll lose his property, and it really is not fair. Zok to Gemara. Hosam de Zuzi Masik. When the Malva is coming, if Levi is a Malva and he's coming to collect money because it's money that he's owed, Amri Paise balchoiv bezusi. What's going to happen is before any purchaser surrenders a property, he's first going to go to Reuven because he's going to try to find some way to come up with the funds so that he could pay off the Malva and the Malva will not be able to seize his property. But that's if the person coming to seize property is really only after money. But Hocha, once my property gets taken away, I'm not going after the next purchaser for cash. I want property. I bought property, I lost property, I want a piece of property. So Hocha the Aramasik, here that I'm not coming after money, you can't bail out. You cannot bail out the property with money because I want property. Made the Yadi, the Manda Asik, Ara Bezuzi Lemafais. Someone who's coming for property, you won't be able to push him away with money and run to Reuven and try to get money. Therefore, you're going to surrender your property. And it turns out that you didn't have to surrender your property because, in fact, this is the second star that he's pulling. We said that when you write the secondary star, the replacement star for a lakeach, write in it no achrayis. So hechik asfinin, what is exactly the nusach of what's written in the star? Amar Nachman, the kasvi haki. This is what they write. Star denon, this star, the loyla mikve bay, you cannot collect with it. Loyme mishabdei, loyme bnei. Meaning, if a malva or an Ara takes this property away from Shimon, you cannot come after Reuven and collect back from him. You can't. This is only made that if Reuven claims he didn't sell it to you, you have a star that says that he sold it. So it only protects you against the peril of Reuven denying that he sold it to you. But anybody else taking the property away, this star will not protect you from that. It's only made so that the seller, the original vendor, cannot deny having sold it. Amar Afram, Zoyse Meres, this teaches us the fact that you have to write beferish in the star, that there's no achrayis, it's masha by default, even if you wrote nothing in the star, there would be achrayis. So Zoyse Meres, achrayis tosoiferhu, because time of the cause of lehachi. The only way the star would not have achrayis is if you specifically wrote in the star you can't collect with it. Haloi cause of lehachi, if you didn't write that, Gavi, you would collect. So that shows that by default, every star has achrayis. Rabashi Amar, no, achrayis lav tosoiferhu. Umay chutz me'achrayis shaboy. What does it mean when we write chutz me'achrayis shaboy? It means the lakas of be'achrayis. It doesn't mean you have to specifically write that there's no achrayis. Just leave out achrayis, and by default, achrayis lav tosef. Hahi itza. There was once a woman that wanted to buy property, so she appointed a man to go and buy property on her behalf. The yoav lezuze lahu gavra. She gave Reuven money with which to purchase a property. And this batlin went. He bought her property without achrayis, which is terrible because now it could easily get taken away from her and she will have no recourse. Also, the Kamed Rav Nachman. So she told Rav Nachman, I don't want to accept this. He messed up. Why should I suffer? And Rav Nachman said, you're right. When you're Memana Shliach, you're being Memana Shliach, you're giving him koach to do something that will be beneficial to you, not something that's going to hurt you. So this property that he bought, that he claims he was a shliach and it's your property, it's his property because there's no shlichas on here because he didn't do what you needed him to do. Therefore, zil zavna minei shaloi b'achrayis, you now should go make a new contract of sale, Mr. Shliach, that you purchased a property without achrayis, and now you have a problem, and v'hadu zavna nehala b'achrayis, and then sell it to this woman with achrayis. So she ultimately will have recourse from you. You won't have recourse because you made a bad deal. More about you. We already said that's because of Oishes Niklis B'Mesira, but our Gemara doesn't know that yet. That will be the conclusion of our Gemara. My time at Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, why is it that if you return the star matana, it nullifies the gift? Amar Basi Nasaka Oimerloi, because we look at it that when the original giver gave me the matana with the star, he put a t'nai into that gift. And he wrote, Sadazuna sunaloch, I'm giving you this property, almanas, kolzman shashtar bayot. As long as the star is in your hand. Frank Gemara, that cannot work, because the star can leave my hand not only by me giving it back to you. What if I lost it? Are you going to tell me the matana would be bottle? The matana is bottle, so that cannot be shot in Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. Alama Rabba, you know what the Reb Shimon Gamliel's svar is? It's be'oisios niknas b'mesira kamim. The question is, if by merely returning the star, does that actually return the property back to the original owner? I'm sorry?
You give it back.
Well, let me ask you a question. I have intention to give you a sada. Are you kind of? So you need a kinyan.
You did it, Mike. You give
That's but that's not a star. That's not a kinyan. There's no such kinyan that's called kinyan giving back a star. There's kesef, there's star, there's chazaka. If I give you back a star and I write a new star saying that I want to give you back the sada, that would work. But you can't just make up your own kinyan. So if you hold oishos sticks to Masira, that is a kinyan, because this star is the handle of the property. So Zok Tamar, Shimon Gamliel Savar oishos sticks to Masira, and that's why the matana goes back. For Rabban Savri, a oishos nick nice for Masira. Tanu Rabban, Habal Lidoin. If someone has a property and there's someone that's being ma'ar on the property. So Reuven has a property, and Shimon is being ma'ar on the property, claiming that Reuven's property belongs to him. And he has two options with which to defend himself. He has a shtar that proves that he bought it, and he also has a chazaka, which we'll see what that means. It could either mean a chazaka that he was there for 3 years, or it might mean a kinyan chazaka. For now, we'll start off with the chazaka of 3 years. What defense should he use? Nidim b'shtar. He should use the defense of shtar. Divrei Rebbe. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Amar b'chazaka. The defense he should use is chazaka. But my commitment, what is the machlokes over here? Maybe he has an option of both. What is there a machlokes here? He asher avdimi Amar b'oisios niknas b'mesira commitment. The machlokes here is if oisios is niknas b'mesira. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Savar ain't oisios niknas b'mesira, which of course is going to contradict what we just said a moment ago. If you hold ein oisios niknas b'mesira, that means if I have a star that says I bought it, then that's perfect proof that I bought it. Rabbi Savar oisios niknas b'mesira, and therefore merely having, therefore I shouldn't use a star. So let's have a look. Reb Shimon Gamliel Savar ein oisios niknas b'mesira. Rabbi Hilchach tzarich eidei chazaka. I need to have eidei chazaka to prove that the property is mine. The kivin to amar le'idach lechazeku kni. Once the seller told me I can go make a chazaka and become the property, v'yesh le'edem sheyesh le'bakana. The karka niknas b'kesav oy b'shtar mechira u'matana b'chazaka v'achi kamar Reb Shimon Gamliel nidim b'chazaka v'loy b'shtar. So let's look on Amar Aleph why you would say otherwise. So let's see the response over here. But my commitment, when we toich kain neida pirsha brisa, that's how we'll know how to explain this brisa. Rabbi Savar oishos niknas b'mesira. Kedik Amar Nami Rabbi behed you a perik amoichas asvina shamoichas shtar choiv l'chaveiroi. If I sell you a shtar choiv, even shemosoloy is a shtar biyadoi kana choiv. By merely giving you the shtar that represents the choiv, you are now the owner of the choiv. When the shtabed loive lozeh koina, now the loive is meshubet to the person who purchased the shtar. K'moy shoyu meshubet l'malva. The same way he was meshubet up until this point to the malva. Kozman shaloi chazor machloi. Unless the malva is mochel, that messes everything up. Kedamar Shmuel. V'achi gamar. Haba lidoin b'shtar u'b'chazor. Shetayin Ruvain kineged ha'ma'ar. Shimon comes to Reuven and says, this property that you live in, it's not your property, it's my property. So Reuven time is, Sadazu shalihi. I own this field. Sharei Shimon. Shekanu milevi. How did I get this field, Zok Reuven? I bought it from Shimon. But it wasn't Shimon's property originally either. You know how Shimon got the property? Shimon got the property because he bought it from Levi. And all he did was give me the shtar that shows he bought it from Levi. The question is, Shimon's ownership of this property is through the shtar. By him passing the shtar to me, does that automatically make me the owner of the property? If Oishis Niklas b'Masira, that would automatically make me the owner of the property. So Rashai Shimon, Shekanim Alevi, Moser li shtar mechira akasav v'shmoi. All Shimon did is he flipped it. He took the contract of sale that records Levi selling it to Shimon, and he passed it to Reuven. So now Reuven is holding a star that says that Levi sold it to Shimon. The Kanisi Asada, the Mesir says star, Kil Nichtav B'Shmi. Once Shimon gives me the star that says that Levi sold it to him, it's as if Levi sold it to me. just like a loan that I can give over the star. The gam hechzakti b'sad shalosh shanim. I was also here for 3 years. So nidin b'shtar divrei Rebbe. Rebbe holds it's nidin b'shtar. V'ayidei ashtar shemoser loy haloikeach kanu lo yasota. Through the star that Shimon gave to Reuven, Reuven owns this field. The oisyo is niknas b'mesira, because oisyo niknas b'mesira v'lo tzarich su edi chazaka, and he won't need edi chazaka. So Rebbe holds you could use the star, because the fact that I have the star, even though the star is not on my name, but if you bought oisyo niknas b'mesira, star proves that I own it. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says, "Ain't oisyo niknas b'mesira." So by me holding the star, it doesn't do anything for me, because it doesn't prove that I own it. I would have needed to have an independent chazaka that says that I lived there for 3 years, and or forget, not that I lived there 3 years, Adim that witnessed that I made a kinyan chazaka on it. So the question is, really what's coming under scrutiny here is Reuven's acquisition of the property. If Reuven just has the star that Levi, that the star that records Levi selling it to Shimon, if he's just holding on to that star, if you hold Oishis Nix B'Masira, then holding on to that star would prove that he owns it. But if you hold Oishis Nix B'Masira, then the raya that Reuven would need to bring is a raya that he made a proper opinion on the property. So now a problem is in our sugya, the Gemara is assuming that Reb Shimon ben Gamliel holds Oishis Nix B'Masira. That's why you could return a gift. But in this sugya, it seems that Reb Shimon ben Gamliel holds Oishis Nix B'Masira, and that's why I need proof of a real kinyan. So that's what the Gemara is going to have to sort out tomorrow.